Welcome to Magic Club. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Jordan Gold.
Hello.
Simon Coronel.
Hey.
If you guys could see what we went through just to get to the point to record this show, you would have no sympathy for us at all.
Yeah.
So right now, Jordan is deep in the heart of Texas, while Simon's back in the United States. Now, what I want to talk about at the beginning, which normally we talk about at the end, is after every episode of Magic Club, we record something called the Secret Session, which is where we teach you our insider sort of magic secrets. And thanks to all of our Patreon supporters, if you go to patreon.com/magicclub, for just $2 an episode, you can support us, which means not only do you get this show for free, you get the Secret Session. And every week more of you have been coming on board, and it's awesome. This week, I have decided to throw Jordan and Simon a bit of a challenge, and that is going to be an impromptu trick using just $1 bill. No gimmicks, nothing else. A bill. I will allow them to use a 5 or a 20, but it has to be an impromptu trick with a bill because I thought that would be really cool because, you know, more impromptu magic's better. And the funny thing is, like, I sprung this on them and they're like, yeah, we'll see. I'm like, well, I'll give you time to think of it. And Simon's like, I already got one. And I'm sure Jordan does. So we'll see what else we come up with there. So I've got a cool mentalism thing I like that we can show. But that'll be in the Secret Session, which you can find out more about at patreon.com/magic club. Jordan, why are you not here? Why are you somewhere else?
You mean like physically or emotionally or?
No, you're always emotionally distant.
I am in Texas right now. I am at this beautiful theater called the Peacock Theater, which is, if anyone knows about Brookledge, or for those who don't know about Brookledge, it is the theater owned by the Larsons, and who founded the Magic Castle. It keeps going back further. So the Peacock Theater is sort of the sister theater at this private, essentially, castle in Frisco, Texas. And we may do a little sneak preview for you out there if you tune into the secret sessions of this show. We've got Brett Loudermilk, world famous sword swallower. And he is the director of this theater. And so he may give us a little walking tour and some information on it. But I'm out here right now.
Excellent. We've talked about it before, but that'd be really cool to actually let people see a little bit of it. So
we may be able to give you some sneak previews. There's a couple interesting things on the wall back here. This is actually the green room of the theater. This little frame in the upper. Can you see this, Andrew? I don't know if this is showing up.
No, I just see your head,
okay.
And I see the beginning.
Okay.
It looks like a Carter poster.
Behind me, next to the Carter poster, slightly out of frame, is in a frame is Penn Jillette's ponytail that he cut off and mailed here. So that's hanging on the wall just out of view. That's actually probably better you can't see it because it's not the prettiest thing, but it is there. So
excellent. So Simon, you've been up to something kind of interesting, which I really want to hear about because I wanted to get the download on it. You just did a show with several other performers, and this was for what?
At the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
For the Hollywood Fringe Festival, which is a bunch of variety performers doing their variety things and, you know, making up for the attention they never got from their parents. And what you did is you did a show with who?
John Armstrong, John Lovick, a.k.a. Handsome Jack, and Nick Paul, myself, were the 4 people.
Tell us a little bit about this and the premise. It was very clever.
Yeah, so we were chatting back at the start of the year. Lovick in particular and I agree that we were talking about the Flicking Fingers in Germany, a group of, I think, 8 or 9 German magicians who regularly work together, session together, brainstorm together, and then do shows, often touring shows and things like that together. And one of the great things about it is with this sort of magic super group, they all end up improving more quickly and more rapidly because they're bouncing ideas off each other. They're all dedicated, they're all working. Then they bring different ideas to the table. And Lovick and I were talking about how much we always envied this because it's great and how you would think that in LA, one of the magic capitals of the planet, there would be more opportunity for this kind of collaborative group work, but you don't see it much. And so I thought, screw that, let's try and make stuff like that happen. And people do every now and then, and there were those things that John Carney ran at the castle for a while, but they died out, and the things Joe Monty tried to run, but they had their own issues and so on. So we thought, all right, let's put a group show together. Let's get a bunch of people we like and just work on a show. And in the process of working on it, we will end up trying new stuff out, bouncing ideas off each other, giving each other notes. So Hollywood Fringe is a very simple, easy, accessible place to do that. You get If you do a show in the Hollywood Fringe, if you are lucky, you will make tens of dollars.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's
Our
expectations.
is on you next time we hang out.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, you could do some good magic with those tens of dollars. Mm-hmm. Some impromptu tricks.
As you'll find out later in the secret session. So we put in the idea for the show, and we thought, okay, what's an easy way to make a group show interesting? Had an idea for a hook.
Nude. Oh, wait. This is already Naked Magic.
Yeah.
Which was an awkward phone call with my mom. There's a thing called Naked Magic coming to town. I'm like, yeah, I know one of the guys.
And I got us
what?
Tickets.
I'm like, never mind. Please continue, Simon. I'm sorry.
So we thought, interesting hook, make it a competition. Because, look, it worked for America's Got Talent, worked for Penn and Teller Fool Us. I mean, that thing, as we know,
worked for the Cold War, going to the moon. People
definitely pay attention to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought, all right, and we couldn't agree on a name. We just argued back and forth. I wanted to call it Nightly Magic Smackdown, just because I've always wanted a show to have that name.
Right.
Ever since a friend back home, shout out to the Gentleman of Deceit back in Melbourne. They were thinking of calling their show that one year. I loved it. I think it was a tragedy there was never a show with that name. Lovick hated the name, so we all argued. We decided, look, let's make that the competition. Whoever wins each night can name the show for that night only. All right, that's fun. That's a cool hook. People come see that. And then I realized, because I wrote that interactive smartphone magic trick way back years ago, where everyone in the audience does an interactive trick on their own smartphones that all connects together. And I realized I could adapt that technology, that code base, to make an interactive voting app. So people can vote live on their phones, because that's always a really fun thing. You can get devices that do that by by radio frequency and stuff, but I could do it on people's smartphones. We get a live vote on the screen above the stage. Everyone went, wow, yeah, that'll be really cool. Great. So this was back in February while I was still in Macau. Armstrong produced it. He put the application in. We all chipped in for the registration fee, which is like $250, really cheap. And then several months passed. I endured Macau, survived that, thrived, came back, did a bunch of cruise ships, got busy. We finally, about 4 nights before opening night, we thought, we already know what we're doing. We're going to compete. One of us will MC. It's an easy format, not a lot of prep required. But we should meet up and work out what we're actually doing.
And just to be sure, you guys are working pros doing this all the time. It's not like you're all coming off of doing shows in other places, and it's not like, I haven't performed in 6 years, and I'm going to go do this, open up at the Fringe Festival next week, which happens. But
really does.
Yeah.
That's Fringe.
So I have a dream.
And yeah, so we already had plenty of material. Because we're doing a 50-minute show between 4 people, that's about 10, 15 minutes of material each. It's fine. We can do that in our sleep. But we still thought, let's at least work out the sequencing and the structure and how we're going to do it. And we met up, and the other guys were going, yeah, okay, that'll be great. Really looking forward to having this interactive voting app thing. And I went, oh, yeah. I now remember that I had said that I would prepare that months ago. Cool. So it was actually 3 days, until opening night. We had our tech rehearsal the next day, and I went, and I thought I could just say, I'm sorry, guys, I forgot, I'm an idiot, we'll have to vote by show of hands or some other system. I'm like, you know what, no, screw it. I've always wanted to make this system for years, and I never get anything done unless there's a deadline, an externally imposed deadline. So I went home and I coded for 16 straight hours from about 5 p.m. until 7 a.m. Is that 16 hours? I don't even, roughly 12, 14 hours. Long time. Took a nap at 7 a.m. for about 3 hours. Had a skeleton version of the system ready. Because, again, I'd already written the basic chunk of code way back, the core server pinging system. Had it basically working in time for tech rehearsal. Then we used it the next night. Kicked ass. Audiences loved it.
Cool.
The interactive voting, really huge audience engagement. And we realized, because, again, the others hadn't thought it through because they didn't even see the system. We realized on the opening day that we were kind of opening up this Pandora's box. Because what if someone gets no votes one night, for example? What's that going to do to your ego, to your self-esteem, to the in-group dynamic? What if one guy just keeps winning and the others just start to resent him? It's really, we're playing with fire here in terms of political dynamic.
The guy who made the app never got 0 votes.
You got voted off the island every month.
Well,
you could have just gone with the old system of using a voting bag. They have these beautiful velvet bags with a circular opening on a stick. You just hand that out. Yeah, wouldn't handle exactly right. Yeah, with fringe hanging off of the velvet bag. A zipper on the bottom you can put your hand through.
Do we know what percentage of our viewers are magicians, like versus just
If they're this
normal
far
people?
in, I would assume they're all, or they're sadists.
We'll get that. People who are going to get that kind of joke.
Everyone's sitting there imagining a change bag in their head, going, "Oh, that sounds like a beautiful bag. I've never heard of a voting bag before."
Yeah,
it's a really good tangent point, because I have my Things by Simon blog and a bunch of other stuff I do occasionally, and I always 100% write it to the general public. And so every time I mention a magician or a magic trick, I explain who that is and what that is. I always work on the assumption that no one knows anything about magic. But again, this is a different scenario. So it was weird writing for Magic Magazine, where you can then rely on a certain baseline of knowledge, versus writing for the public, which is my primary interest audience-wise, where you assume nothing and explain everything like that.
We have a similar problem as magicians at the Magic Castle, because half of our audience are, seasoned magicians, and half of them have never seen live magic before. So we have, anyways, back to your digital voting thing now.
Ignore the magicians. Ignore them. Do not play them. Anyway, back to the voting. So we did the show. And the great thing, in terms of people wondering if, obviously, all the jokes about the guy who made the app rigged it, but what we did was we programmed in a test question at the start to show people how it works. So people bring out their smartphones. Mm-hmm. They go to a website that we've given them. They all load that in their browser. And the voting system comes up. There's just a poster for the show at first. And the cool thing about the system, the way I designed it, is that we control from an admin interface on my phone or the MC's. We can control what then appears on their screens in real time. So we can have their placeholder display. Then when we go, it's time to vote, we hit the admin system, and their screen then changes to show the voting options. So we can control what's appearing on everyone's screen in the audience in real time. And we say, okay, test vote. If you're going to order toast, do you want it to be white, wheat, or gluten-free? Just simple question. Everyone sees those options on their screen. They press the one they like. It says, thank you for voting. On the screen above the stage, you see the vote tally coming up in real time, just how many votes have been received, not what they are. 3 people, 7 people, 20 people, 26 people, 50 people have now voted. Then we show the results, and you get this animated bar graph, so it's a little bit suspenseful, and you see whatever, 16 white, 23 wheat, 4 gluten-free. And then you can go, whichever's the smallest number, you go, all right, by show of hands, who were the gluten-free people? 4 people put their hands up, and you go, oh, right, so this really is the actual numbers being validated in real time. So at that point, they really have a sense of their vote is counting, is really being measured, and has that relevance in the usage.
Being interactive, the asking questions, raising your hands is a choice you made is powerful.
Yeah.
So then later, when you totally fake all the voting, people still believe that it's
exactly.
real. Right?
Core magic principle, right? Demonstrate how it works, and then change it. And we did, for better or worse, go with the real voting numbers. We thought about, someone had a really good idea, which is to deliberately fake a tie, so you have a dynamic tiebreaker. My problem with that, as soon as you do that, if that happens every show, people now talk on social media and stuff like that. Oh, there was a tie. Oh, wait, there's a tie every night?
Yeah. It breaks the trust. It's not as fun.
Yeah, I'm all about the trust.
So, who won? I mean, who?
Well, every night was different. It varied hugely. And this was what was fascinating, was how much the votes varied each night. And we deliberately tried to mix it up and do different stuff as much as we could. So first night, it was Nick won by a landslide. He won with something like 17 votes. I had about 8, and then Jack had 3. So it was this really different, huge. Nick Paul.
Okay.
Yeah. Not known to most magicians. Yeah. He's a working guy. Does mostly silent mind magic in that sort of Buster Keaton-y character kind of way.
Cool.
How did Jack respond to having 3 votes?
Well, so in the way we do it, we had the test vote, then we do the lightning round, where everyone does 2 minutes. Then the audience votes on their lightning round. And then whoever wins the lightning round gets to decide what order we do our main sets in. So the lightning round was also a landslide by Nick, bunch of votes by me, 1 vote for Jack in the lightning round, which he then upped to 3 for the final vote. And so his crack that he posted on Facebook afterwards was, I want everyone to notice that Simon got fewer votes in the final than his lightning round. I more than doubled my votes. Round to the final.
That's statistics. Jack's he is a great performer. Yeah.
Great performer, smart guy.
Lovick is wonderful, but Lovick has got that personality that you could be like, either you're in it and you get it, or you're like, this guy is annoying me.
And this is what we realized that was so interesting, because always, this is one of the reasons why we collaborate. We can give each other notes. We can all help make each other better. And so we were looking at it, going, okay, why did he play so much worse than the others? And one of the things I figured out watching it was because Lovick Handsome Jack has this he's very character driven. Handsome Jack, magician male model, and he does not look like a male model. That's the joke. You realize that. But normally when he's introduced, the introduction will be something like, voted Magic's sexiest man, blah, 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 that kind of thing. He walks out and he does this classic opening line, I know what you're thinking. How does a male model have time for magic? That gets a massive laugh, and then you get it. It's a very self-aware character. But in this show, because we structured differently, he didn't do that. He didn't have that intro, and he didn't use that line. And so when he went straight into his win a date with Handsome Jack routine, the audience who doesn't know his character, it played as creepy and weird.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point.
Character. And that was why I think he did so badly in that show.
It's a character that very easily, if you don't have that set up, for a lot of people it plays into their biases about a magician, like, oh, these creepy weird. Here's an example, no, he is extremely self-aware, hyper self-aware, and that's the beauty of the character.
On that character.
Yeah, I've seen that happen where some people don't realize they're watching parody, and they'll go, oh, it's just this. It's like, no, that was the whole point. They understood every single point, you didn't. But oh wow, that's very instructive, because with one tweak, it's super powerful.
There was a similar situation with Handsome Jack at, speaking of being in Texas, the Pitchfords, who put this all together, run Gearbox Software, which is a huge video game company. And every year at E3 in Los Angeles, they do a big variety show for the company. And they hired Handsome Jack a year or two ago. And one of the big characters in Borderlands, his name is Handsome Jack. And so they introduced, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Handsome Jack. And then John Lovick comes out as John Lovick and does this whole male model thing. And everyone in the company is sitting there just like, handsome, what? And he did his whole 15-minute show, 20-minute show. And it was just silence because people were so confused at this discrepancy between Handsome Jack not looking or acting anything like their character, Handsome Jack, and then also being on top of that, this male model character. Yeah. It just pretty much just bombed for him because of that weird introduction, and it's pretty great.
Note for non-gaming industry viewers, Borderlands is a very popular video game, one of the biggest flagship titles of Gearbox Software, in case you didn't know that. Got to explain this stuff, Jordan.
Is it available on my ColecoVision?
Wow, that's a reference.
Yeah. Maybe ColecoVision X coming out.
So that seems like what I like about that is part of it is when you're doing an ensemble, there's less pressure to develop a whole hour show, which last time you did, and you did a great job, but that's so stressful to have to do that. 15 minutes is great, you get feedback, and that being able to do a bunch of shows and iterate over and over again.
Well, the other thing that was particularly interesting about using the voting software, because the audiences all said that was great, they loved it, was there were two things. One was, if Jack hadn't got such a low score, we might not even have thought about why that was happening, and we wouldn't have realized that contextualizing the character point. So it would have played fine, and it still played okay, and you got laughs and gasps. Whereas because of that score differential, it made us start thinking about why was that, and we discovered some stuff we wouldn't have ever thought about otherwise.
Dude, I am such a big fan of getting objective data, and you run into the problem is that when you deal in a corporate environment, everybody's data, everybody gets data. We all get data, we all get this feedback, but you'll be in situations to realize where, if I'm dealing with, let's say, a publisher, they'll look at the data that confirms what they already believe. They'll believe data that says this is what I believe. They'll be suspicious of data that's counterintuitive, and sometimes because it's bad data. But if it's counterintuitive, that's where you learn the most. If you think this is going to be the result and it doesn't happen, maybe you need to look at that again. And I look for ways in which I can just objectively test things. So if I get a book cover suggestion from my publisher, I send them to all my friends, and I'm like, hey, just tell me which one you think. Rank 1, 2, 3, or 5, 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5. Tell me what you think, and I don't tell them what I think. And I get back individually what they think, and then I build a little graph to figure out what they voted, what they said, and so that's helpful. And then when it comes time for me to make a decision, I use that to inform my decision, because if I really like number one, but everybody else hated number one, I'm like, maybe not. But if they said, oh, number three was their second best choice, doesn't mean that that's the second best. That might mean, hey, we need to redo our covers entirely because there was not a strong preference. So useful. And I think in Magic, I think that's there's the joke about, the person who'd wait in the bathroom after the show to listen to, what people said, or the comedians who do that.
Not even joke, real technique.
Yeah.
Very effective. Well, I've always been all about the empirical data as much as possible. Like I was back 8 years ago, I still use audience post-show surveys because, again, asking people real information. Getting inside the minds of your audience and your market is so important, yet almost never actually addressed in Magic.
They used to do on cruise ships, they would actually have these cards, your comment cards. And so at the end of your cruise, your last day of the cruise is Sunday, Saturday night, you'd get this comment card pushed under your door, and then your job was to write down, like, what did you think? What was your experience? And as an entertainer, you lived and died by those comment cards, that you would
still do it.
Yeah. And the best story I ever heard was there was an entertainer, he's like a magician comedian or whatever, and he was not that good. They said he just wasn't that good, and he wasn't that good, but he kept getting great comments, just great comments, and for some reasons, audiences loved him, so he kept getting booked back and back again. And it could be, I don't know if it's apocryphal or whatever, but they found out he was intercepting the comment cards and changing them and getting rid of the negative ones about him, and then he was adding positive stuff about himself. And this ran on for a while until somebody realized, like, well, how are we collecting these? And they realized that, oh, wait, he's intercepting them. And
wow.
Pro tip.
Yeah, voter fraud.
Yeah. One of the problems you get into now, though, is it's like everybody wants data. You get these surveys, take the survey. And I hate them because, hey, take this quick survey, and I'm 2 minutes in, and I see this little progress bar, and I'm like, and they'll do the fake ones like, oh, you're almost done with this section. I'm like, you just asked for a half hour of my time. I'm going to abandon this. And here's the thing. You're going to get a lot of data from people with a lot of free time. You're not going to get data from people who do this. And these things skew. And I've been a big advocate when I deal with publishers or other people. If you're going to do surveys, give me a short, give me a random 5-question survey that I can send out to my fans. Don't make them do 20-minute ones, because the 20-minute people are going to be obsessive. They're either going to obsessively love me or obsessively hate me. And you're not going to get your middle ground by dividing those two.
100%. That was something I wrote a whole set of notes about this called the Institute of Layman's Studies, which is a slightly parody phrase for this idea of just actually getting inside people's heads. And one of the things about doing the surveys is as few questions as possible, short as possible. If you make them long, and your response rate will drop off.
Yeah. I had a thing that I was thinking about doing, and now it's actually extremely possible, was I wanted to do a study to see, do people know how magic tricks work? Like, watch a clip of this. Do you know how this worked? And just to get an idea. Show them a sign in half. Do you have any idea how this works? I'd be really, really curious to hear, what are people's theories? What do they think? How often do they know? How often do they do or not know? And are some of the most powerful effects maybe things that don't fool as many people, but for those that do, it's that much more impressive? That'd be really interesting data that nobody's collected, but could be easily done.
Well, Magic is a strange thing too, because watching Magic on video versus experiencing it live is slightly different because of the frame that you see stuff in, and then also the way that it sticks in your memory as well, like creating these images when you're doing a live performance.
Watching David Copperfield's 7 o'clock show and his 9 o'clock show. And it's absolutely true. And I actually worked with a friend who had put him in touch with David because they were talking about the idea of measuring people's emotional responses during shows and doing blood draws and stuff, which was a very interesting sort of idea. And yeah, it's watching on absolutely, it can be a different thing, but it's a starting point. It's a starting point to say, are we fooling people? And done right, done the way that they should be performed, do they fool people? And also then you could get into like, hey, how effective is a person doing it poorly versus somebody does it well? How effective are tells? Just I think it'd be fascinating.
Something we realized that we are in a great place to measure, because there's now talk of making this Magic competition show a monthly thing in LA. In a bit longer, fleshing out, making it variety rather than just Magic.
letting
but still
Jack
having
do
the
his opening joke so he can.
exactly, so he can massage the vote a little. But and also having something like a round where everyone explicitly has to do a new piece, so you can make it much more balanced. The rule, everyone has a new bit because everyone wants to test stuff out, but you've got the pressure with the vote. If you're trying out new stuff and another performer isn't, it's going to skew it hugely. So if you have a round where everyone does one short new bit, then everyone does their own material. At least you're seeing that balance, and that's interesting for the audience. They're getting to see the new untested material. It's a good hook. We get to try out our stuff. The vote varies.
You know, it'd be cool. Another because they've done like some of those magic competition type shows and stuff, but just sometimes it gets a little bit too randomy or whatever. But but I mean, those was a great premise. Like Wizard Wars is a great premise, but imagine like, and maybe it's not within the show because it shouldn't be a goal to see how well you improvise, but the idea of, you know, one Monday or whatever night you do it, each of you walks in with a trick, and you do a trick exchange, and somebody else has to go do that trick next week, which.
Yeah.
Because you have this, you won't try to sabotage somebody, but it would be a very cool kind of way to see what happens.
Well, and now we get into this one of the creations of Tim Ellis, another Australian magician, where he looks at theatre sports as one of the many manifestations of the art of improv acting, and it developed magic sports, a bunch of theatre sports like games for magic. And some of them are a little, I'm not a fan, but some of them are brilliant. And now at the Melbourne Magic Festival, which I'm going to in a week and a half, every year they do a full-hour magic sports show featuring some of the performers in the festival, ticketed to the public, not to magicians. That's important. Not interested in festivals aimed at magicians, interested in ones aimed at the public. And this magic sports show, every time, kills. Even if the individual routines are a bit janky, it's a great, great, great concept that is so rewarding to explore and can end up being really fantastic sometimes.
Part of it is because it's like, I think you guys have experienced this, once you let go of the method or the effect or whatever and you focus on the presentation, you realize that we have it backwards. We spend 90%, I mean, I sit here, you know, playing with a deck of cards, practicing a palm or whatever, but that's going to have zero effect on how good I'm going to be of a performer if I go do something Friday night in front of a crowd. I mean, my confidence about this part will be good, but my presentation, my lines, my interactivity, it may actually be worse because I'm thinking about, man, this is going to be great because I got this passed down so good. I'm like, oh, that's great. Versus if you're just like, Andrew, go entertain these people with a deck of cards, I'll be like, oh, okay. Hey, you have a card. I'd think of something funny and entertaining on the spot and probably last minute come up with a trick, but if it's so energetic, people have more fun. It's a big believer in just improv in general too for magicians. Take improv classes, and then you know, because it's a great place to fail. In magic, we're afraid of failure. We practice to the point that we will not fail, but we will not fail. We practice to the point that we won't fail on a technique, but we will fail in every other case and still think we won. No. You know, yeah, the trick bombed. You know, I muffled my introduction. I spoke too fast, but man, the trick worked great. So, well, that should be the last thing that's important, in my opinion.
Well, and reactions in the moment don't necessarily add up to long-lasting impressions. You know, I've seen people who, in the moment that they experience something, are very quiet and sort of lost because they're really taking everything in, as opposed to just reacting outwardly because something was surprising and then just forgetting and not caring really about what happened in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, the other as the tangent, which is back on the idea of what doing this show longer terms with more elaborate stuff, I would love to find out is, and we all know this experientially, I would love to get some actual hard data on it, is how much does being the last / closing act boost people's perception of what you do? And we know it's a lot. We all know that. Like, people will, because you're the headliner, it's the ending, it's the final one, it's the recency effect in people's memory. I'm looking forward to, over the months of doing this, collect some hard empirical data and look at, regardless of which act and what material, over time, how much higher on average are the third act scores than the other two.
Yeah.
And I look forward to finding out. And we eventually will find out something like, on average, it makes people vote for you 17% higher than everyone else, or whatever the number ends up being. And I love the idea of getting some tangible measurement on that kind of stuff, which I don't think has ever been done, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost, you almost wonder if, like, there would be neat to figure out some sort of app that's really good at all sorts of random data, you know, be able to collect that sort of stuff, your own database of, you know, what I ate today, what I did this, or whatever, that groups it all and lets you figure that out. Or if you're a performer and, Like, oh, well, here are the cues you can measure. Let's let this recorder run, and we'll measure your applause time. How long did people applaud for, etc. So it can be very cool. Gentlemen, let's move into, before we go adjourn to the secret session where we're going to be doing our impromptu dollar effects. The idea is that you're supposed to, out of this, we hope you'll get 3 cool effects you can do at any time with a dollar bill, and which could be very useful. Let's do any recommendations. I've got one I'll lead with, which is Simon mentioned doing coding develop. Simon and I talk a lot about this, and it's very much a thing that we both enjoy doing because we like to create, like to entertain, and tools to help assist us doing that are wonderful. I just recently started learning how to do iOS development. Years ago, I did some iPhone apps and stuff, but I was using like game kits and things like that, which did all the work for you. So I decided I was going to learn how to do this program Swift, which is a programming language that Apple now encourages, and how to do iOS applications. And it was a wonderful experience because the tools out there are very easy to find. The tutorials are excellent, and it took me not a lot of time at all to do that, to get things up and running. And I'm going to give a pro tip is that if you want to learn stuff, a great place is lynda.com. That's lynda.com, which has got a bunch of tutorials. I have a friend who's an editor for a major studio. He learned a lot of what he uses on his job from tutorials there. Many of the people who do tutorials on a place like that, actually, if you go to seminars, if you go to developers conferences, those are the teachers and instructors doing those presentations there. They're actually on these tutorial sites like Lynda teaching you. A cool tip is if you have a library card, check your local library, but in many cases, I know it's the case in Los Angeles County, your library card will give you free access to lynda.com. So instead of paying for a subscription, you get the free, it's a $35 a month subscription. With a library card, it's free, and you don't have to go to the library to use it. You use it from your home, you electronically log in. And there's a lot of other stuff, how to start a business, web development, Photoshop. Tons of resources are out there. Acquire skills. Constantly acquire skills. It's my biggest piece of advice is every year you should be able to say, I learned this. And recipes are cool, but that doesn't count. I think that just adding stuff to what you can do, it multiplies everything else. So Simon's ability to code added a really cool, fun angle to a magic show, to a fringe festival. It was this, it was cool. We got to vote. We got to do this. If Simon didn't know how to code, it would have just been an idea, and that would have been it. So any ideas? Any suggestions?
My suggestion or my recommendation, this is going to be a little more challenging for some of you to experience, but if you have the opportunity, go check out Meow Wolf in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Meow like the cat, wolf like the animal.
We talked about doing a drive out there at one point.
Oh, it's so worth it. I just did it 2 days ago, and it was mind-blowing. It's really a good interactive storytelling at its weirdest. It is pretty hard to describe.
Yeah.
First of all, it's an art installation, but it's more than that. It's an interactive story experience that sort of weirdly unfolds. But it's not linear. It's not something that you walk through and are spoon-fed. It is something that just exists, and you have an opportunity to explore it at your fullest. But the story is just sort of hidden without. Is it what?
Kind of a Sleep No More type situation?
No, not really. I mean, not as much, because the story is there, but you don't need to know the story or experience the story to experience the art in its physical space.
Dismaland or
one
of those installations.
It's fully indoors. It's all self-contained. It's you find yourself completely turned around inside. It's sort of like a hallucinogenic maze of sorts at times. It's very, very strange. And I don't want to say too much about it because, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but it's pretty out there. And it's worth checking out. If you have an opportunity at all in the slightest, even if you do nothing else in Santa Fe, if you just come out to see this thing, it's worth it. We spent a good 5 hours inside walking around, just exploring all the different areas. And about 3 or 4 different times when we felt that we had both experienced a satisfying amount of it and felt like we'd really seen almost all of it, we kept discovering new areas and rooms and things that just we didn't know were there. And there's hours of just reading material inside. You can go through all of these artifacts that continue to dive deeper into the story.
I love that these things exist, and what I love is like we're getting, we have the 2-bit circuses working on their own experience out here in LA. I love that we're going to get escape rooms and things like that. We're getting this sort of, as a kid, I used to think about like, man, when could we have a Disneyland in every state? But instead what we're getting these smaller little different niche attractions that are a bunch of different ones. And I love that. I love that we're getting, we're going to see magic ones. We're going to see all sorts of ones. And I love the idea that this very crazy, cool collective kind of stuff, because like when Banksy does his pop-ups, they're like, those look amazing. I want to go to that stuff. I just like the idea that that's going to become a thing in the future where there's going to be just more and more of that.
Yep.
We're going to get the one that we work on with our magic installation project.
Mm-hmm. So Simon, any picks?
Yeah, I got a weird one that just occurred to me while you were talking then about recommendations. I have recently, I'm so excited about this, it's about to get nerdy and engineering heavy, guys. So I think this is the right audience for it. Made a huge step to solving my physical storage problems. I have a lot of stuff, bits and pieces for magic things and life things, like you have stationery and all kinds of physical.
You've learned to collapse things into a 2-dimensional space. Thank God.
The first time I stepped foot in Simon's apartment, I think my initial reaction was, I feel like I just stepped inside of your brain.
A lot of people have that response. My apartment is you're about to see a piece of it, because my recommendation is if you find your life is cluttered with things, with some pieces.
As I look over at my 3D printers and my boxes of stuff, Simon and I are very similar in this regard, and that these are houses, our places are machines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a workshop that I happen to live in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I finally found a beautiful match made in heaven of IKEA Billy bookshelves. IKEA names their products with names. Billy bookshelves with IKEA, the wide ones. There's narrow and wide. There's 2 widths. And then Container Store basic plastic shoeboxes. They're about $1.89 each. They're unbelievably cheap. And you combine them, and the thing is the shoeboxes fit perfectly 4 to a shelf. So there's no wasted space. And you get, I wonder if the lighting will allow this situation.
Wow.
It's like my mom's shoe closet.
Yeah. And in each of those, I have different stuff. There's like a magic, I'm starting to label them. There's one labeled right now. Each one, like one is for USB cables and chargers. One is for magic teaching stuff. One is for just about 5 of them, just miscellaneous, unfileable crap. It's just changed my life. It means my apartment is now so much less cluttered because I have a place to put everything.
And a tip, what you could do too, is that you can get from IKEA, I believe, you can get a drape that goes in front. And so if you want to have somebody walk in and not have the first thing this, and again, like I live like you, where I have like projects and stuff, but then I'm like, I should probably get something to just put this behind a curtain, so that way it's not always there.
Anyone who's going to look down on that is a lame person who I don't really care about.
I don't think it's a matter of looking down on it.
Confronted by it.
It's its own aesthetic for sure.
I would say, yeah. I mean, it's like there are some people in this life who choose to use plastic hangers, and yeah, they're perfectly functional. But when you look at a closet and you see plastic hangers, it's like,
what kind of hangers do you use, Andrew?
Wooden hangers.
Oh, I've got metal hangers.
Like
not like the wire, not like the thin wire ones, but like thick.
Yeah.
One piece.
Yeah.
They look like a magic prop.
Yeah. That's fine.
Speaking of which, I remember one thing. One of the key things about this system that is something my mother taught me is if you're looking for storage of lots of stuff, transparent plastic.
Yeah.
Not a fake cardboard. Like the fact that you can see what's in there while hunting through it is a game changer.
What's funny, Simon, is that on a couple years ago on Amazon, I found almost that exact setup, but shrunken down. It's like a tool chest. You can put like screws and things. And it looks just like that, except it's about this big, and I can keep close-up magic in all the drawers. So you just have a huge version of it, basically, which is pretty great.
And this is the key, this is what makes this work, is it's infinitely expandable. You can, not infinitely, but so much more space than you'll ever need. And if you find you don't have enough filing categories, you can just get more IKEA shelves, more Container Store plastic boxes. It's not like you've got a unit that's this big and you have to, if all the drawers are used now, you don't know where to put the thing, so it sits on your desk and your place gets cluttered. You can just add more shelves and or more boxes as you need to.
When I worked for when I worked for Penn and Teller, I would every time I put together a trick and I finished a trick or whatever for them that was done and something was performed or performable, whatever, I'd put it in a plastic case. I would put in a little list. This is what's in here. These are the instructions on how this works. Put it in there, mark it, whatever. And it was funny because I did that with several things. And I remember like half a year later, I got an email from Tellers like, hey, we did this thing on the show with someone on Letterman. Do you know whatever happened to that? I'm like, yeah, go up to the shelving unit, go look for there. And I get like an hour later, like, bless you, because he says he found everything in there with my instructions, my detailed notes, and all of this, and they were able to recreate it entirely. Because it's like, for working with him, I knew the next person to have to work with this may not be me. You know, somebody else may have to do this thing. And even though like, oh, we know how this works, like, no, just put it in the notes. And it's like code, computer code. Like, even though you're thinking I'm the only one to do it, put notes in there, say what this does, because sometimes it's just future you going, what did this do? So.
Is that great? Yeah, programmers know good code is at least minimum 20% comments.
Yeah.
Because, again, one day you'll look back at your own code and go, what the hell was this guy thinking? And you have no idea. Life is similar.
Gentlemen, this has been great. Now it's time to go to the secret session.
Always a pleasure.
Jordan. Excited. All right. Invisible gavel.